right, so today I'm going to ask you a little question. One small little question, and I'm going to try my hardest, like my very, very hardest, not to make any assumptions about what you're about to say. You ready? What is your favorite John Mayer album, like of all time? Now, if you're anything like me, that answer won't take you very long to think about. You're probably typing it into the comments right now or just have it popping in your head. And while you're doing that, I'm going to tell you very quickly that I just told you a giant lie. You see, remember about 12 seconds ago when I told you I wasn't going to make any assumptions about your answer? I lied. I'm going to make all the assumptions. My assumption is that 90% of you, maybe even more, probably answered that with Continuum. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think for a lot of us guitar players in like the Instagram millennial generation, Continuum was our first like soiree into the electric guitar world, right? You remember hearing the slow dancing riff and hearing the Belief solo for the first time and just thinking to yourself like, wow, what makes this guy so special and what makes all these riffs and licks so memorable and why does this make me want to pick up and spend 7 hours a day learning the electric guitar? Even artists who are non-guitar players like the rapper J. Cole has talked about on his commentary album how Continuum inspired him and how he sees it as one of the greatest albums of all time. And you can fact check me on that. But all you super fans might also know that before Continuum, the man, Mr. Mayer, actually dropped 2 albums before. One was called Heavier Things that was a little bit like Continuum in that it was electric guitar driven. I've even heard him say that that album was kind of like his first real love letter to the electric guitar. But that's another topic for another day in another video. But before Heavier Things happened, there was one previous album. It was a 13-song masterpiece that he put out in 2001 called Room for Squares. And what makes it different than both Heavier Things and Continuum is that this album was mostly acoustically driven. You see, as I've heard him say, he was living in Atlanta at the time. And while he was there, he was much like you and me, not a superstar yet, and pretty much just playing a lot of shows. So he had to be able to play them all acoustically, either that or with his friend David LaBriere, who happens to be an incredible bassist. And on that album, there are only really 3 songs that stick out as being electric guitar driven. And even some of those songs that like Neon have taken on with albums like Where the Light Is and his current performances have such a big acoustic presence that it's not even like they're electric songs anymore. So that leaves 2 songs. And the one that I'm primarily focused on right now is one that I don't even think he really plays live that much more anymore, that I am infatuated with on a regular basis. It's one of my favorite songs he's ever written. It happens to be called City Love. You see, it's kind of brilliant. And when I decided to really break it down and take a look at like some of the harmonic structure of the song, I remembered why. Hold on, before I tell you why, let me get out my guitar. You see, the song starts out and he starts playing these double stops, right? Wait, that doesn't seem right. He doesn't play a Telecaster. That also doesn't seem right. Wait, I just remembered. He also plays a song in drop D. You might be thinking to yourself, it's drop D, what makes that so cool? Because at the end of those double stops, it's a pretty simple chord progression. He'll hit this G major 7, but then he'll also hit a D major 7. And having that open D note to hit makes it hit really deep, and it's really cool. Now, we've seen Mayer and a lot of pop guitar players use double stops before, especially in things like country music, pop music, whatever. But one of the cool things that I've heard a lot of people say about Mayer, because I can't take credit for this phrasing, is his ability to bring blues sensibilities into pop songs, right? So while he's playing these double stops, he's singing the top note of each of the dyads and ending on that G major 7 and that D major 7 at the end of the phrases. So our next chord is really cool because he decides to switch up the flavor completely and go to this F major 7 on the 3rd fret before going to this B flat major 7. Now, if we look at our key of D major, we find neither F nor B flat is in our D major scale. So this chorus section, as it is completely different. It has a completely different flavor and a completely different vibe than the verse section. And you hear songwriters say that a lot, like you want to make your chorus feel new. So it's really cool being able to put those in there, and we'll go more into that in a second. And then he does this thing where he goes outside of the key to find another chord, where he goes to this C major 7. And he just switches on and off between that and our G major 7 for kind of this hook line, I can't remember life before her name, and he just hits that on every downbeat. Before going back to that open D just to end it all the right way on the 1. He didn't want to give me a complete heart attack with changing it up again, so he makes verse 2 very similar to verse 1. All of the chords underneath are essentially the same. We go back to our regular riff, right? Before going to our chorus section again with that F major 7 to B flat. And he goes to that hook, I can't remember life before, with our C major to G major. But this is where he gets really interesting, because instead of ending on that 1 like he did before on the D chord, to end the hook, he actually goes to the E flat. And this is the part where I really start to geek out. Not necessarily because of the harmony, because lyrically, he starts going, the day she called out and came to me, covered in rain. And that chord progression is the exact chord progression from a live song from Any Given Thursday called Covered in Rain, which has one of the coolest guitar solos that I've ever heard. So you get a glimpse into one of the songs that hasn't even been played yet. And both songs happen to mention this main character, Lydia. So it's just cool that he has both those references in both songs, and that the bridge can be like that. And it's another time where your ear was probably expecting this to go back to D like it did at the end of the hook, at the end of the first chorus, but he goes to that E flat. And after all this, you might be like, okay, is he finally going back to D? No, he goes to G minor, then to C major, back to our E flat, before finally giving us the major 1 chord that we wanted. But by that time, it's too late, because we're into the solo section. And this man just slides up to the B, which is the 6, and we start playing over our original chord progression, which is that 4 to 1. He ends the phrase sliding up to the 3 as soon as we hit our G major 7. Now, the 3 in this key is the F sharp note, so he's targeting that, and it makes it really cool. Then we hit a couple other blues licks, some pentatonic stuff, where he targets both the B and the F sharp, both 2 notes which happen to be in our G major 7, before doing this interesting lick. It's one of those cool licks where, as a guitar player, just one of those things that I have a tendency to do, like a lot of people, is to keep my pentatonics very static and in line, and that can work a lot of the time, but it's cool because he kind of switches and plays the octave, or octave of the 5th note in the scale, and is able to switch around and play with the positions while ending on the double stop of the 1, this D chord, right as the 1 chord hits. Then he goes to one more really cool pentatonic lick while we're still playing over this. But then the chord progression switches to our chorus chord progression, which has that F major 7 chord. And this is where we really start to see that Stevie Ray Vaughan influence, because my man hears that F major, he immediately goes to our minor pentatonic. Then we get super Stevie, super blues, we hit the major 3rd, and even on some of the live performances, you have to really rake this section out. And one more time, we go back to our chord progression, because we always go back in this song to that 4-1. And it's kind of like a 3rd verse before going into this really, really big chorus that kind of pulls the song together at the end. It's interesting, man. I think there are certain songs, depending on what album it is, not just from John Mayer, but from anyone, there are certain songs that you like. But there are other songs on albums like Room for Squares that you straight up cling to. And I think it's because of like the harmonic stuff that goes on behind some of the singing and behind some of the soloing, specifically in this song, where, like I said before, he's borrowing chords from different keys and putting some of those blues influences in, so clearly making it more than just your average pop song. And I love seeing that and breaking down a song like City Love and seeing all of the live performances and how he's able to shape them in different ways, especially like the one at the Crossroads from Eric Clapton with that intro. And definitely let me know in the comments if you think it'd be cool if we broke that one down one day. You can see just how much Stevie Ray influence he has. You can see that this is a guy who's studied Hendrix and who's really mastered and studied the electric guitar. So I love breaking all this down, and it was really cool to do that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This is one of my favorite John Mayer songs of all time, so breaking it down is something I've been meaning to do for way too long, especially with getting out the pedal board for the first time in a while and getting out some of these tones. If you liked any of the tones, or if you like the Strat or want to know anything about it, all of this gear can be gotten at Sweetwater. It's one of the best ways to support the channel if that's something that you want to do, or if you're just interested in learning more about how I got some of these tones, make sure to check out the links in the description. Also, let me know what other artists or specific songs you think would be cool to break down on this channel. I'm always looking for new stuff and new video ideas, and I want to listen to more of what you guys want to see. And most important of all, like literally most important of all, have a fantastic day. Why am I awake? Nails on the